So how about Devonta Smith? He's a of course he's a first round wide receiver. He's a top 10 wide receiver as well, which is a bit surprising. But, listen, I keep saying don't draft a wide receiver in the top 10. We see 3 of them here go in the top 10. I just think that the positional value doesn't make sense when there's so many good wide receivers that you can get in rounds 2 or 3. But I also say that for a team like Philadelphia, I do kind of understand where they're coming from. I'm a little bit lower on Smith than some other teams and some other people, but I still think that he's very good. So I don't hate the pick whatsoever. Definitely not what I would have done, but at the same time, I had a feeling they were going to go wide receiver. They wanted to get one of the big 3 that are on the board, so they traded up with the Cowboys of all teams, which was a shocker to me that those 2 teams would just, help each other out like that. So I don't know. I'm surprised Dallas did that, but, it was kind of that weird situation where the top 2 corners in most people's boards were off the board, and the top 2 wide receivers out of the 3 were off the board, and Philly really wanted one of those 5 guys, so trading up to get it, I do understand it. I think that, again, for me personally, I would have rather them kind of go somewhere else and then draft a receiver, but it's where else do you really go other than receiver with that pick? So I get it, and I want to talk about Devonta Smith now, get into his film, and really talk about what makes him a very good player. So yeah, let's just get into the film study. So we'll start off with this play. It's going to just be a curl route, but really what's going to be key here is I want you to almost pay more attention to the defensive back and how he's going to try and play Smith than just Smith himself. Because sometimes that's honestly a better way to see how good a receiver is. Because, watch what's going to happen. So Smith runs forward, and watch the DB and watch how he just, turns his hips completely and is in a full sprint to get deep now because he is worried about getting beat deep. I mean, Smith can absolutely burn you deep if you're not careful, which is interesting because Smith, I feel like, part of what makes him so good is his footwork. So it shows kind of how complete of a wide receiver he is right there just on one play. And I know this camera angle is weird. It's not showing the whole play, but you don't need to see the whole play. You just need to see this to show, I think, really, he's, in baseball, there's 5 tool players. Well, I'm not sure if there's 5 tools for a wide receiver, but he has all of the tools to make a successful receiver. Watch him slow down. Again, really good footwork right there. And I like the amount of steps he takes. Very good to help himself slow down. And he's even able to run after the catch, which, to me, I don't know how well that's going to fly in the NFL, but, it worked in college, so that's nice to see. But really, it's the, starting speed, the acceleration, and then the stopping speed. That's kind of what makes him so good. This play is going to be another somewhat similar example. I watched the game against Georgia because this game against Georgia, I have in my cornerback rankings, I have a bit of a different cornerback rankings than most people, but I have 2 Georgia corners that are in my top 3. So that just kind of goes to show how valuable I think some of these corners are. On this play, it's a one-on-one matchup with Tyson Campbell, who is my number 2 corner. And the one thing that Campbell can do is get beat with footwork. And you're going to see that happen here because Smith has incredible footwork. Watch how right when this play starts, it's a clean release at the line, and he got Campbell behind him. So then when he stops, Campbell just completely runs past, and now Smith is wide open. So that's probably my favorite thing about Smith is the way that he can, get you to buy that he's going deep and then not go deep, which is, he's really good at that. And again, he does make the grab. This time, nothing after the catch, but still, very impressive play against a guy who's going to be in the NFL next year in Tyson Campbell. Now we'll go over to this one because I want to talk about his route running for a second. I feel like Alabama doesn't really ask him to use his route running too much, and I'm not quite so sure about how good he is at, turning his hips. As great as his footwork is, his hips aren't quite on that level, and that is kind of one of the things where, hip movement tends to matter more at the NFL level than the college level, but he can still run routes really well, and I think that one thing he can do is just kind of sell a player on making, he makes them think that he's doing one thing when he's actually doing something else. And his hips still are pretty good. So this is going to be a zone coverage play. You have the wide receiver who isn't Smith, who's actually the plus receiver right now. He's going to run over the middle. And then Smith, who's the number 2 receiver. So the one, not the one closest to the bottom of the screen, but the next guy, he's going to kind of run underneath. And the hope is that the corner gets taken away from the first receiver and you can have an opening there. And once his play starts, watch how Smith kind of does a good job of almost setting up as though he could be blocking. Because you notice there's another receiver who runs out and it's kind of underneath. So maybe this could be a wide receiver screen and you could have him block. And this is something Alabama does. So really good kind of fake there by Smith of just that's part of what route running is. Get someone to think that you're doing something and then do something else. But the flip side now is that you kind of were a little bit slow, and you're going to have good acceleration to finish off this play. But luckily for Alabama, Devonta Smith has really good acceleration. Watch him just completely blow by, and he's going to get wide open for a touchdown. So yeah, that's kind of some of the things that he's bringing to the table, is that acceleration, and it is that he can make you think he's doing one thing and then do something else, which is definitely a skill. I want to stick with the Georgia game for one more play. I want to talk about this one where it's going to be, this time he's going up one-on-one against Eric Stokes. So that's the other corner I was talking about, the other guy who's going to be in the NFL. This is going to be a deep route, trying to get into the end zone for a touchdown right here. And watch what's going to happen. So he is able to kind of run by Stokes a little bit, get Stokes turned his head the wrong way, which, listen, that's not easy. Stokes runs 4.25, at least that was his pro day time. So getting him a bit turned around is pretty impressive, although it did seem a little bit more like that was Stokes just being a bit late and getting over when he probably should have just turned quicker, but nevertheless. But then watch this catch. So that's really also what's impressive about Smith, is he can do all this stuff, but he can make a tough catch as well. So that's kind of one of the other things that I really, really like about him as a player, is he can make a contested catch, which is something that I think gets a bit too much attention, but it still is very important. It doesn't translate to the NFL as well as some other stuff, but it still does translate to the NFL to some degree. I mean, look at CeeDee Lamb. That's a huge part of why he's been successful in Dallas. Like, this one's another great example of him just making a tough catch, where it's going to be a zone coverage play action, and you have Smith running over the middle. Very basic concept, nothing too fancy. But what's going to be impressive about this play isn't necessarily that he's going to get open, or that there's going to be a good throw or whatever, but watch what happens. Smith runs this route well, cuts perfectly, really good cut. It could have been a little bit better, I guess, but despite the bobble, look at how he hangs on to it. I'll show this angle. He bobbled it, which isn't great, but it happens. However, he gets smashed in the head and still is somehow able to hold on to the football. So the idea that he can, the hands there and the strength, I think, is key. And that's kind of why people talk about his weight. To me, his weight is overblown because you don't see it on film, so I'm not really concerned about that. He can make a tough catch. He's solid route running, really good footwork though, and good speed, good length, I think. There's a lot to like about Smith. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.